Good evening, everyone. It's really lovely to see you. Welcome to our webinar, where we're going to be talking about how to support children with sensory processing needs. My name is Helen Garnett. This is Jackie Harland, and we're the founders of Art Pathway.
Yes, so we're really pleased to have Melanne Maddalene with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Melanne. Melanne is a very, very experienced occupational therapist who specializes in treatment of sensory integration and a range of neurodevelopmental disorders. I've known Melanne for many, many years, and her reputation is amazing. So we're really pleased to have her with us. You know, Helen and I are founders of Art Pathway, and one of the reasons we developed Art Pathway was our passion is that every child is understood. And we really wanted to support teachers in understanding children and in particular their behavior. And we know that a child's sensory responses is a really important factor in children's behavior. So it's really great to have Melanne here to be talking about sensory processing. In Art Pathway, we measure sensory processing, which is great. But thank you, Melanne, for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Melanne. And so we're going to ask Melanne some questions. We'd love a quick overview first, please, Melanne. But if anyone has got any questions, just pop them in the chat, and we'll be able to answer those throughout the webinar. But Melanne, to start with, could you give us a quick overview of the different sensory systems there are before we start talking about some of the strategies?
Absolutely. And I will try to do it fast and succinctly.
Don't worry.
It's a challenge for me, as you all well know. Before I run through the sensory systems, I just have to say I do greatly appreciate being asked to join you ladies. I too spend quite a bit of my time, both in the UK and abroad, trying to support the educators on how to identify classroom strategies to support, when to ask for more help with children with sensory processing and neurodevelopmental issues. Now, one of the things I greatly applaud is your identification and continued support with behavioral issues, because behavioral issues in children that have sensory processing disorders are a symptom of that underlying issue.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you want to treat that. You need to understand it, understand what the child is telling you through their behavior, and then start to anticipate the behavior by observing the child during the classroom activities, so that you or the teacher's assistant, or, every school calls it something different, but is able to notice that something's getting ready to happen and pull the child out, give them a little bit of what I call fix to circumvent that behavior. But I often say, if you see a behavior in a classroom, I need you to understand that it's a symptom of an underlying sensory processing disorder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really important. When I deal with psychologists, I'm constantly telling them, you need to understand what a child is telling you through their behavior.
Yeah.
And putting a child on a behavior modification program, particularly when the issue is 9 times out of 10 vestibular based, I'll mention that in a moment, doesn't work, because the vestibular system is the system that allows you to modify your behavior and self-regulate. So if that system hasn't fully developed yet, so it's not accessible to the child, it's not helping that child to regulate and modify that behavior, giving a behavior mod program is contraindicated. The system that allows the child to modify that behavior isn't online yet, hasn't matured. Then why would you put them on a behavior modification program? You're setting them up for further failure. So that's one of my big messages out there for teachers, as well as counselors in schools and psychologists, because that behavior modification program seems to be the go-to route, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really important. A number of the strategies we're going to talk about tonight do work, but that one doesn't. All right. Okay. So there are 7 sensory systems: taste, touch, smell, hearing, vision, vestibular, and proprioceptive. Now, most everybody understands taste, smell, vision, even touch to a degree, but I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to start with explaining the vestibular system because it's so pervasive. It's so important.
Yeah.
And really, every child that comes in our door, in whatever clinic or whatever country, tends to have a vestibular-based issue. It's layered with other things, but that tends to be the foundational delay.
Yeah.
So the vestibular system is in your inner ear. There are 3 semicircular canals. Each of those canals has fluid, hair cells, and crystals in them. You have a vertical, a diagonal, and horizontal canal. So first and foremost, it tells you your spatial orientation of where you are in relationship to your environment. Most doctors understand that, okay? Most GPs, I know they're doctors as well, but you know what I mean, understand that. It also affects your balance. Again, most doctors understand that. And that's kind of where they end with this system. What they miss is that it regulates muscle tone. So children with low tone, they have trouble managing their posture. You can either get good posture if they're thinking about it, or you can get them to focus on a task, but you can't get both. The minute the attention goes to a task, the body melts. They're holding their head up on a table. You know, they lean into the desk. They can't do both. Muscle tone is key. And of course, we all know if you have low shoulder girdle stability, it's going to affect your handwriting. You've got low pelvic stability, it's going to affect your running, hopping, skipping, jumping, and low core is going to affect all your postural movements. It also affects your eye tracking. So the ability to smoothly read across a printed page and drop down to the next line is regulated by this system.
Yeah.
So before someone goes for a reading assessment, eye tracking needs to be checked. Because if you're skipping words and skipping lines, it's going to affect your comprehension.
Yeah.
And you're going to start to avoid reading because it's too difficult and time consuming. It also, so we've got reading, eye tracking, we've got muscle tone. Let's also talk about focus and attention. That's a huge part of your ability to self-regulate. So all of our ADD kids, this is usually a vestibular disorder. Then we've got your activity level. Arousal level is the way we say it clinically, but activity level. So hyperactive or hypoactive or fluctuating. Okay. Never quite know what you're going to get with the fluctuating children. The ability to regulate that activity level is vestibular system based. Then you've got, and this is interesting, organizational skills. You have to be able to organize all of your body before you can start to organize your work, if you will, and social interaction, which is your most difficult skill, okay, because of all the subtleties involved in that. So that organizational piece is really important. There's some other little subtle things that this system does, but let's just stop. I mean, impulse control is another one.
Yeah.
So the child that wants a toy and just takes it, or the child that's frustrated and acts out towards another child, or the child that can't wait and they don't raise their hand, they just shout out the answer. They can't control impulses.
Yeah.
That's a vestibular-based self-regulation issue. So this system, super important. The good news is it's also one of the easiest ones to mature once you identify that it's gotten stuck developmentally.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
So that's important to mention as well.
Yeah.
All right. The next system, that's a funny word that most people aren't aware of, is proprioception. Proprioception is a little simpler. You have little receptors in your muscles and joints throughout your whole body. It tells you where your parts are. Okay. So if you are carrying something down the stairs and you can't see your feet, you're okay with that because unconsciously, automatically, you know where your feet are. If you are having a conversation with somebody and reaching out to get your glass of wine or your tea, you don't have to watch your hand because you're able to manage that. You know where it is. If you drop your pen in a meeting, hopefully you look down, you back up, you pay attention, and you pick your pen up. You don't have to watch. But if you've got an issue, the mild version, the moderate version, and the severe version, the minute you drop your pen, you're out of whatever's going on in the front of the room because now you've got pen anxiety. Got to pick it up. Mild, you're going to have to visually direct your hand. You come back down. What did I miss? Moderate, You're so busy focusing on visually directing your hand that you don't pay attention to where your derriere is and you fall out of your chair. Severe is you don't even try the trunk rotation directing the hand. You stand up and you bump into the table and spill everybody's coffee or tea. You take a step back, you knock into the table behind you, and you haven't even gotten near that pen. So the proverbial bull in the china shop. This is your pinball child in the classroom, where they enter the classroom and they're busy being social and they're bouncing into children and tables and chairs and they're tripping over their feet. Unless they're watching the body parts, they don't know where they are.
Yeah.
This is the parent that says they spill their milk every night. It's in the same spot on the table, but because they're trying to be social and talk to their family, they're not watching their hand and they knock their milk over. Okay. Handwriting greatly affected by proprioception, because if these little fingers are numb, kind of a slang way of stating that, they don't know where they are, it's very hard to direct a little tool in doing little fine movements that are required for handwriting. Okay. Now, I said I was going to come back to touch. Tactile touch. Tactile maturity is really simple. It only has 2 levels of development. It has protective and discriminative. So we are all born on a protective level. If you touch a newborn baby, they will withdraw from touch. And that's very normal. But within the first few months of life, they should start to move into the discriminative level, where they start to identify touch that they like and touch that they don't like. So they might learn that mommy's cheek is nice and soft. Daddy's cheek, particularly at the end of the day, is pretty scruffy. And if daddy has a beard, it might be very scruffy. Okay. This corner of the blanket has satin on it. I either don't like that or I quite like that. And I don't like the blanket that someone else gave me because it's kind of like horsehair. It's too rough for me. I start to identify textures in clothing. We've got children that will only wear one set of clothing and they wear it every day. And they want it loose because they don't like it tight, or they want it really tight. That's a little proprioception with tactile, because that extra pressure helps them to know where their body is. With finger painting, you will see children withdraw from finger paint. They don't want to do it. And I will tell teachers, put sand in it, put risotto, put some big pieces of pasta, desensitize so it's not so slippery. We do this with food, with kids that have oral tactile issues. They won't eat mushy foods or slippery foods. So we want to add more texture to it. So tactile defensiveness, people will touch them unexpectedly and they act out by pushing back because it's a very uncomfortable thing. You also have, besides the tactile defensiveness, you have tactile seeking, children that will touch everything and everybody to the point of annoying them. They're trying to mature their tactile systems. Okay. So if you get stuck on the protective level, you are tactile defensive or tactile seeking. If you make it up to the discriminative level, hopefully then that system continues to mature and you're good. Okay. The other ones are pretty self-explanatory.
That is so interesting. I mean, I think this whole area of, the sensory responses and behavior and what is, how much of what teachers see in the classroom is actually a sensory response and how little is actually a behavior. And this was something we were going to ask you is, if a teacher is there and they've got challenging behavior in the classroom, is there any, what are some of the keys that you could think how you would determine whether it's a sensory response or not? I mean, my son, I think I've said to you before, was a biter. And so behavior modification programs were put in for him in the early years, but he didn't stop biting until he was given crunchy food and crunchy snacks. And then he stopped biting.
So you gave him another proprioceptive output for his jaw and for the oral structures, and then he didn't need to bite.
Exactly. So we'd love to get onto some strategies, but is there any keys for teachers that you would say how they can discriminate this is a sensory response as opposed to in some cases, I'm sure some of it is some behavioural response. Well, it's all
they're
behaviour,
both,
isn't
aren't
it?
they? They're both.
But it doesn't have a
require
sensory
behaviour modification
root to it.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't have a sensory root.
So what's interesting, first and foremost, observation gives you so much information, but the difficult thing is in a classroom, teachers are teaching. Okay. So sometimes I will tell teachers, switch with your PA, your TA, your teacher's aide. Let your teacher's aide do a lesson and you go to the back of the classroom and watch.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the playground and watch. Okay. Go to PE and watch what happens in PE. Go to music or art and watch. You only need to do it a few times. Also watch how a child responds to you. A classic, because we're all nurturing or we wouldn't be working with children. All right. And let's say we've got a little guy that's really struggles with focus and attention. And on this particular day, he's gotten it together and he's sitting there really focused doing his work. We want to go over and check on him. And we very gently put our hands on his shoulder and say, how is it going? And instantly, bing, he's lost his focus and attention because he's tactile defensive. And he's probably trying to rub out where you were just touching him or squirm away when you go to touch him. That's a big clue. And now he's not going to get back to his work. Okay. If you're going to touch a child, and when I work with teachers, this is one of the first things I tell them, use heavy or deep pressure. Don't leave marks that last more than 2 or 3 minutes, but a heavier pressure, like Jackie right now, give a nice little squeeze to, a nice pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, now give a light touch.
Yeah, good. Oh, yes.
You see the difference? Now do that to Jackie.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference.
Yes, because I'm slightly tactile defensive.
Yeah.
And that light one is almost irritable to all of us.
Yeah, so you're right.
Heavy touch is really important. And even if you're coming behind to check on a child, push down on their shoulders. You're doing two things at one time. You're activating the core muscles and they'll tighten up for 30 minutes. You're also giving a stretch through the shoulders and the trapezius area here, which actually, without being too clinical, stimulates the vestibular nuclei in the brainstem, and that works with the focus and attention for another 20 minutes. And you've improved the posture, and you've checked on the child and given him nice touch. So just a really quick thing has a great kind of feedback. If you've got a child, I'm sitting on a hockey stool. I think I showed you all this last time. It is a stool with a rounded end. Okay.
Great.
And all my workstations are mobile. And you'll notice I move when I'm moving. So it activates my core all the time. But more importantly, it stimulates the fluid in those semicircular canals, keeps my muscle tone up, keeps my eye tracking, keeps my focus and attention, and helps me to stay in one place versus needing to rock in my chair and leave my seat all the time. So when you see a movement seeker in your classroom, I know I'm jumping ahead, but when you see a movement seeker in your classroom who's constantly out of his chair, who's leaning way back and you're worried he's going to fall over, who's standing up and putting one knee on his chair and leaning down and working on his desk, he's telling you a couple things. He's telling you, first of all, I've got low muscle tone. If I stand up, gravity alone, pressing down on all my joints will tighten up my muscle tone. And when I'm leaning down on that table from a standing position, I'm seeking a lot more proprioception through my shoulder girdles to help me with my handwriting.
Yeah.
So right there, he's told you, so we got a vestibular issue and a proprioceptive issue. Okay.
Interesting.
But what do we do as educators and therapists? We will say, sit down, stop moving, stay in your seat. When that's the worst thing you can do. So in a classroom, I like to have alternative seating and standing options when I can. And if you don't have a lot of money and you can't buy standing desks or hockey stools or things like that, get some therapy balls. They're not very expensive, particularly on Amazon, big 55, 60 inch, can be 65 inch or centimeter. I'm sorry, not inch, centimeter balls. Get Clear off one of your bookshelves so that they can stand there and write on their bookshelves.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the formula for the correct table height or bookshelf height, if the child drops their arms down at their side, inside of the elbow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want the child writing like this because they're going to have a hard time controlling, and you don't want them bent over.
Yeah.
Right? So movement opportunities are really important. One of my favorite things, if you've got a squirmy class, okay, and which, let's be honest, years ago, we might find 1 or 2 kids in our class. Now it's about half, okay? Take a 2-minute break, not even 2 minutes. Tell everybody to stand up. And what I want you to do is jump up and down 10 times. Now, that is vertical vestibular. Remember I talked about the 3 different canals? That's the vertical. But every time you come down when you're jumping, it's full body compression through all of your joints in your spine. That's proprioception. Okay, after we've done our 10 jumps, I want you to spin around 5 times. And at the end of your spinning, before you even stop, start jumping again. But this time I want you to clap 10 times while you're jumping. So now we've done a rotational, that's that diagonal vestibular canal. Okay. The clapping is going to stimulate the proprioceptors in the hand. So we're going to be better off for our handwriting soon. And again, the jumping will calm down any dizziness from the rotational spinning. When you get car sick or seasick or air sick, or from spinning around on a playground piece of equipment, that's because you've overstimulated your diagonal canal. And the quickest way to clear that is to stimulate another canal.
Oh my goodness.
I tell kids that get car sick to bounce when you're in the car.
Oh, interesting.
And if that doesn't work, where your soft spot used to be, put your hands on that and push down really hard, and it will instantly clear you.
Wow.
So back to the little classroom thing. So we started up and down 10 times.
That's really good.
Then we're going to do 5 spins to the right and 10 times clapping, and 5 spins to the left and 10 times clapping. And then we're going to sit down and do our work. And what you will see for everybody in that classroom, I guarantee you, because everybody right now is kind of going, that's going to be so disruptive. I'm going to lose their attention. I'm not going to get them back. Trust me, everybody will be sitting, really lovely posture, focus and attention on, and ready to do work. And that will last for 25, 30 minutes.
That's brilliant.
So it's my favorite little quickie. It just resets the whole classroom.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I just, when you were talking then, Melanne, it reminded me, I went into a class and I saw in the school, in that class, they had children standing up working, and they had like a little table on their desk. It was like a little stand on their desk. And then it was slightly slanted. So as well, but it was amazing seeing these children standing and working. And so it wasn't a case of having to buy a high table. It was when the children needed it, they went to the side and they got these stands so that they could work at that level. And I thought, just so good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And even laying down, if you've got an area in the back of the classroom or an area where they do reading circle or something, for kids that need to lay down on their belly in a prone prop, when you're up on your elbows working, that does a number of things. It activates the head and neck muscles in the back, which carries over to helping with focus and attention. It's compression through the shoulder girdles, which stabilizes this area to support refined hand and finger movement. It's a different plane for your vestibular system, the horizontal one, to be working in. Even if they're only there for 10 or 15 minutes doing their work or reading, it's a wonderful opportunity to change position.
Brilliant.
Sitting in a chair at a desk, most of our kids, their sensory systems shut down.
Mm-hmm.
There's no stimulation going on. So standing, moving, mobile seating, all of that is really helpful, because even when they're standing, they're doing some little movements, and those little tiny movements stimulate that vestibular system.
That is so good.
Brilliant.
And then strategies for younger children, because some of the people on our webinar may have younger children, so they won't be so much at desks and chairs. Can we do the same kind of?
So what I do, let's go to circle time. We spend a lot of time on the floor with the little ones. Okay. This is what I love, going in classrooms and doing this. Okay. So the first thing I do is teach everybody different positions. Okay. So I get the whole class and I will tell your teachers, you want to do this. They love it. And I'll say, okay, everybody, we'll do the first one. Everybody sit and crisscross applesauce. You know, you're crossing your legs. You know what I mean by crossing your legs?
Yeah.
Okay. And now I want everybody to come up on their knees in a high kneel. So this is a high kneel. I don't want them sitting back with their bum on their heels. I want them up on a high kneel. And then I want everybody to bring up one foot. So we're standing with one foot. Okay. And then I want you to switch and bring up your other foot in what we call a half kneel.
Okay.
Okay. Can you guys see that with my hands?
Yes.
That's it. Yeah. Perfect.
All right. I practiced this. No. Anyway. All right. And then I want everybody to try side sitting, which is a windswept where you've got your feet over here and one arm holding you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're going to switch and come over here. So we've got side sitting to the left and side sitting to the right. Then I want everybody, and it's the last position you go to, in a prone prop like a wagon wheel where everybody comes out. So as the teacher, we have everybody come to the floor with their legs crisscrossed. And all right, so today's jobs are Peter has got cleanup and Susie's going to hand out the books and Peter's going to, and then all of a sudden you go, everybody on a high kneel. And then you go right back. Now the weather today is, and you go through that and you talk for another couple of minutes. Okay, everybody half kneel. And you come back, talk, everybody half kneel. And so you don't miss a beat. You don't pay a lot of attention. They do it, you know, and then they go to the next one. By the time you've got them in a prone prop, that's your last position. And that's a gorgeous position, as I said earlier, for activating the shoulder girdles, which will support handwriting. So now we're going to go back to wherever they're going to do it, whether it's, you know, scattered around the room, still on the floor, or at little tables to do whatever work they've got to do. Okay. But what you've done, every transitional movement, so going from side sitting to the other side, from kneeling to half kneeling, from crisscross to kneeling, every transitional movement where you go from one posture to another, activates your muscle groups and your vestibular system and your proprioceptive system. So it's huge. So where teachers, again, hearing me say this, are going to be, I'm never going to get through my circle time, are absolutely amazed. These are the ones, teachers, that will grab me in the hall saying, unbelievable. We've never had such a great circle time. You know, all the little boys that would play with the girls' hair because they're tactile seeking, or that are looking around and looking out the window and doing all that, are actually focused on me, because every 2 or 3 minutes, this teacher's throwing out a transitional movement.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to teach it first, you know, because they all want to learn it, you know, and you say, okay, everybody, we're going to try something new today. And so they learn the terms, you know, half kneel, side sitting, you know, that kind of thing. And they look at their peers to make sure they're doing it right. But that's one of my favorite things for circle time.
Wonderful.
That's so good.
That is so good. Yeah. That's so good.
And then for everybody loves their straight lines, right? Teachers love their lines.
Oh, yes.
So you've got, let's say, 3 or 4 kids in the class that have spatial issues. You know, they're not really good with their straight lines, and they have tactile issues. So a lot of times when you say, okay, time to line up, we're heading out to music, you'll always have 1 or 2 kids that are looking around and they're acting like they're helping the teacher to put everything away. What they're really doing is waiting till they can be the last possible person in line, so they don't have to worry about somebody bumping into them unexpectedly and then they act out. Okay. The other thing you'll see is the child run to the front of the class and turn around. They're going to lead, because now they can see everybody. They don't have to worry about anybody bumping into them. The child that gets stuck somewhere in the middle and someone bumps into them, that's when you're going to get a behavioral reaction, because they're in that defensive mode. Anyway, when you do lineups, depending on how you want to do it, have them assume a posture. 1 finger on your nose, 1 finger on your head. These kids are so busy thinking about the nose and the head while they're lined up that they don't have time to be knocking into everybody and worrying about being in line. Okay. Sometimes you can create 2 lines. depending on the age group and their awareness. Everybody with the color red on goes to the right, and everybody, you got to pick colors that hopefully everybody has on. But they're busy looking at their colors and checking everybody else out. I like the postures.
Yes.
Okay. But it gives them a job.
Yes.
To do so that they're not as worried. And it's really not for the intact children.
Yeah.
Although they're having fun with it.
Yeah.
It's really for my kids that have anxiety about lining up.
Yeah.
Okay? And you've got to realize the effect anxiety has on children. It's huge.
Yes.
Most of these little ones are so much more aware than we think they are. I know, Jackie, you've probably heard me tell this story, but I had a little 4-year-old one day who wouldn't do anything for me. Sat with his arms crossed, back against the wall. And I'm jumping around the equipment, trying to make it look fun, because I needed to see him move, to see what the issue was, and get him on equipment to test him. And finally, I sat down next to him and I said, I think I know why you won't play with me. He looks at me and he goes, why? And I said, they're adorable. And I said, well, because you don't want me to see that a lot of this is hard for you. And he looked at me. He said, how do you know that?
Wow.
And I said, well, because I work with a lot of little girls and little boys that this is hard for them. But if you don't show me, I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And he sat back and he looked at me and he said, you can fix it?
Oh.
And I said, yep. And he said, okay. He puts his little finger up. Here's the deal. He said, I'll show you, but you can't tell my mom.
Oh my goodness.
And I knew, but I needed him to say it. I said, why can't I tell your mom? And he said, because it will make her sad.
Oh my goodness.
So here you've got a 4-year-old that is a mess, struggling, very aware of what he's struggling with, and protecting his mom.
Wow.
So I said to him, sweetie, I think your mom already knows.
Yeah.
You? How? And I said, well, that's why she brought you to me. And again, you could see him processing. He goes, okay, let's play.
Oh, how sweet and how amazing.
But that mom had said to me when she booked, he has no idea.
Yeah.
Why do I tell him I'm bringing him to you? And of course, I always say, oh, he does know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I tell the teachers is these kids know, and they're so busy with these sophisticated protective mechanisms and avoidance techniques.
Yeah.
That it's real easy. I've had teachers say, well, he's got an oppositional disorder. And I will say to them, no, he doesn't. That's his strategy to protect himself from everybody finding out that he can't do it.
Yeah.
Children are brilliant at masks.
Yeah.
You don't treat him like he has an oppositional disorder. You're treating the wrong thing.
Yeah.
What are the kind of typical strategies that children would do to avoid or to hide?
Okay. PE. This is a classic. PE, where they're doing something that this child can't do. He's going to go to the loo 10 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And often not come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to go to the nurse because he's got an upset tummy.
Yeah.
Okay. He will, depending on how aware they are of the schedule, a few minutes before it's time to go to PE or art or, whatever they're nervous about, they will get sick and go to the nurse. Okay. So that's an avoidance and protective mechanism. You will also see kids in PE, they want to be the goalie.
Yes.
Now, even though we know goalie's a rather sophisticated position, to them, no, it's not, because I don't have to manage my body and run around. I just get to stand here.
Yeah.
Okay. And most goalies miss it anyway, so they're not going to be mad at me.
Yeah.
So, you get that kind of a thing. I tell my PE teachers, here are my kids that you're working with.
Yeah.
I need you to make sure they're included in the group, but they're not ready yet from a skill set. So give them a job, let them help you be scorekeeper. Let them help you get the out of bounds ball and bring it back in. Let them help you, with other things so that they're involved, but they're not mortified when everybody starts laughing or when it's time to pick teams and nobody wants Peter.
Yeah.
I know.
So
it's amazing how many children mask at young ages, and they will make their way through the day with these challenges and then get home and have real emotional.
Oh, they fall apart. we will often have teachers who will say, I don't see any of this during the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the parents will say, it's a nightmare at home. And that's exactly why. They can, it takes all of their energy to hold it together, all of their compensatory strategies.
Yes.
When they get home, they're done.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful,
I
isn't it?
know. Yeah.
And it's also a safe environment to dump. You know?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that's a big telltale. The other thing I will have, teachers see all this at school and parents don't see it.
Yes.
You know, with the tactile defensive piece, I'll have a parent say, well, he's not tactile defensive with me. And I'll say, well, of course not. You're predictable. He knows how you're going to touch him.
Yeah.
But it's an unexpected touch in a group of your peers.
Yeah.
You know, that makes it significant. Yeah.
So Melanne, well, actually, I mean, what we'd like to say to everyone who's listening is, if you have any questions, do put them on the Q&A chat. So we'd love to be able to present some further questions to Melanne.
I wanted to, can I throw out another little thing? So for your clumsy and uncoordinated kids, the ones that on the playground, they're tripping over their feet if they're not watching their feet because they're trying to be social, you know, and they don't want to watch their feet. If you can, let's say we've got recess in 10 minutes, get some little ankle weights. You know, the little Velcro ankle weights. And call Peter over and put 2 ankle weights on him. And have some extra ankle weights. Anybody else want some ankle weights? You know, let them, you know, when your PTA comes to you and says, we've got some funding, what do you want? Go to Amazon and buy me a bunch of ankle weights. But what you'll see when it's time to go out to recess, take those ankle weights off because your body will acclimate. They're weighting a child, whether it's a weighted vest or wrist or ankle weights, is only good for about 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. Then you need to take it off, and then they feel incredibly light. All right. But watch when he goes outside, he's not going to trip as much because we've just woken up his little proprioceptors.
Yeah.
And then you want to get your parents to play wrestling games. You know, this is a good opportunity to get dads sometimes involved.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell my dads, I give them permission because sometimes they're a little too careful around kids. I don't want to hurt him. And I'll say, I need you to squish him, you know, pin him down and lay on top of him. You're not going to hurt him. He's mostly cartilaginous, you know, but, you know, give him that deep pressure, roll him up in a yoga mat and sit on it. You know, I used to have my teachers, before everybody got nervous about touch, stand with their legs like this at the classroom door in the morning. And the kids had to go through like little snakes. And the teacher would close their legs really tight to give them that. We called it the hug machine. It's great for your inner thighs, but it really wakes up their little proprioceptors. And you can have everybody line up in the hall and stand out from the hall and fall in and catch themselves and clap and catch themselves, you know, those kind of little angled dives. That sets up all the good proprioceptors in the upper body. You can have them sit in their chair and do chair push-ups. You can have them put their tummy on the seat of their chair, hands on the floor, and do seal claps. You know, all of that. It takes seconds, but it's a wonderful warm-up before activities.
That's so good. That's so good. We did have somebody who sent a question in who couldn't be here. Can we ask you that question? Do you want to?
So it's a 5-year-old who's constantly on the move, bumping into people and running into the road sometimes. And do you feel this may be related to sensory responses? And if so, what can they do?
Without a doubt, it's a vestibular-based disorder. The running into the road, it's because he doesn't know where he is. Okay, that's a spatial issue. And running into things, bumping into things, that's a spatial issue that's probably got a layer of vestibular and proprioceptive to it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you'd take a vestibular, you'd use strategy.
And proprioceptive issue.
Okay. That's
and again, you know, getting the parents to go to a playground, go on the roundabout. You know, that's the diagonal canal. Go on a swing. That's linear. You know, jump up and down on a jogging trampoline. Or a big trampoline if it's got a net around it, because if they're not spatially aware, they'll go right off.
They'll jump off the edge.
Oh, gosh,
Yeah,
it's
that's not safe.
So can I ask, Melanne? We've got a couple of questions that we must answer. But when you do these activities, do they have long-term effect or do they have a short-term effect?
No, they have long-term effect. What you're doing, so these classroom strategies are we call it formally classroom sensory diet activities, and we give parents sensory diet things for home as well. That's all geared towards helping the child to function in that environment, okay? But any degree of stimulation that you're doing helps to start to mature the system. Part of why I said, here's what we're going to do from a therapeutic standpoint, here's what I want the classroom teacher to do, and here are the activities that I want the parents to do at home, so that I tell the parents, we're going to change how you play. We're going to make play more meaningful from a sensory development standpoint.
Right.
When I work with PE teachers, I try to explain to them, I know you guys love your games, but in today's world, most of these kids don't have the pre-skills, gross motor wise, and upper body, to do the games yet. So you've got to back up your program and go back to basics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially in the early childhood years.
Yeah.
I know we all love our games, but because of the digital age where everybody's on a device and nobody's really playing outside a lot, and we really need to back up and do a lot more early development work on these systems.
Yeah,
that's good.
Look, that top one, the question we got, because I'd love to know the answer to this, because this is something that I faced as a therapist with children. And it says, I work with preschool children. We have a few autistic children with pica who put a variety of items in their mouths, i.e. bottle top, sand, dry pasta, Play-Doh, and have sensory chews, but they have a chew and throw them away. Do you have any suggestion for this? And I have come across children who we've given chew sticks and chews to, and they don't use them.
Right.
Is there...
Okay, so first and foremost, pica is one issue. Oral stimulation, secondary to a vestibular disorder, is a different kind of issue.
Okay.
And unfortunately, everybody throws it into the pica.
I've thrown it in together in my mind. So,
I know. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying.
No, I'm glad to hear it.
So before we're born, okay, if you do an ultrasound, very often you will see a baby in utero that's got finger in its mouth, a toe in its mouth, sometimes the umbilical cord, but they don't usually have teeth, so it's okay, in their mouth. And they're very much using the very first area for calming and focusing, and it's called oral sensate. Yeah. Okay. So the vestibular system, because we're in a floaty environment, and it needs gravity to really develop. Your vestibular system hasn't really kicked in yet. When we're born, now we're moving against gravity. So our vestibular system is getting a chance to develop. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it doesn't, if it gets stuck early on, and we've still got a child that is oral seeking, that's telling you, this child, help me, I got stuck. My vestibular system's not doing its job. It's not helping me to focus and attend and stay calm, regulate my different alertness levels, all right? So I'm going to use the first system that did that for me, which is oral. So I'm not talking about exploring objects, all right? That's a whole different thing. That's normal. I'm talking about seeking that stimulation almost frantically, okay? If you watch a child in a classroom, watch what's going on when they seek oral stimulation. Is it an area, whether it's a subject or an activity or something that's going on that they're anticipating this is going to be hard for me, or I'm going to have trouble with this. And they'll instantly, if they don't have something, they'll start chewing on their collar, or they'll start chewing on their sleeve, pencils, pens, crayons, whatever they can get in their mouth, it's there. Okay. So that's not pica.
No.
That's a child saying, I'm trying to use this to help me focus and attend and stay calm. Okay. The pica is more where they're just putting stuff in their mouth, but there isn't an anxiety or a need that goes with it. They're just putting, okay. So again, we're back to the observational piece.
Yeah.
And very often, so we went into a class, this was years ago, we did a research project in the States where we went into a classroom. There were 4 of my kids in that classroom, meaning the kids we were working with. We took a little basket of, and we got the insurance company for the school's permission to do it, of little sorbitol candies. And this was a first grade class, or so it would have been reception, I think, right?
Reception, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, reception. All right. And we put the basket up on the teacher's table and we said, we're going to keep these here for a whole month to thank you for being so great about us being in your classroom a lot. Come up whenever you want. This is your reward. So of course, the first couple of days, because it's exotic and new, everybody comes up and they're grabbing the candies. What was really interesting is by about the 4th or 5th day, kids seemed to only come and get the candies that were struggling with certain subjects and focus and attention. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the end of the month, the teacher, and of course, our kids were coming for them, the teacher reported a 34% increase in production or performance because of sucking on these candies.
Right.
So we're not allowed to use them in schools, but I will tell parents, and if you're worried about choking, use a lollipop. But sucking more than chewing has a really strong, I mean, you've heard, I'm sure you use you want a thick milkshake or something, crazy straw, and that has a neurological. Yeah. So when we've got this, it's a really lovely way at home to be able to help a child, get increased focus and attention. But so that whole sucking thing and stimulating that oral sensate is what they're telling you when they're doing that. Yeah. Typically with the chewy toys, there are really cool things out there and there are not such cool things.
Right. So
there are rubber dog tags that are really pretty cool. You can get them on Amazon. They come in all different colors for girls and boys. There's chewy jewelry, little necklaces and things that they can put in there. The old chewy tubes and stuff, nobody likes those. We haven't used those for a long time.
Interesting.
That's interesting. So they just may not like them. That's really...
So we often let them choose. We'll give them a little basket. Which one do you like?
Yeah, good idea.
That's good.
Melanne, there's a couple more questions. I'd really love us to quickly answer them. My boy always walks at the edge of the sidewalk or on the grass at the side of the sidewalk, but never on the path. What do you think it might be?
Well, it could be a multitude of things. You may have a very interesting son, and that's not a bad thing, just a little bit different. Second of all, I would have his vision checked, okay, to make sure that differentiation between sidewalk and grass and the color difference and the texture difference isn't needed for navigation. Just, you always want to rule that out, okay? That's usually not an issue, but you want to rule it out. The other thing he may be doing is just seeking different sensory input. A rough surface. It's interesting. You'll get children that will avoid going off-road, so to speak, because it's uneven and bumpy and every foot is a different footfall, and you really have to have good proprioception to do that. Or you have children that seek it out because it's stimulating. Okay. So he could be seeking it out because he likes it. It's stimulating to him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
I would let him do it. But if you notice he's ticking some other boxes, and we all know there's lots of checklists out there to check, then you might want to look into it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So we got 2 more questions. One here says, I don't know whether it's relevant. My 2.5-year-old girl always does not like wiping, blowing her nose when she gets a cold. It's to the extent that whenever we try to wipe her nose, it seems like she will want to vomit.
Okay, I got to fix it.
She now only accepts a tissue with cold water. to do a quick wipe, but not a dry tissue.
Okay. Well, that's because a wet tissue is not as noxious as a dry tissue. That's a pure tactile thing.
Yeah.
Quick fix, simple to do. Your nerve fibers. All right. So you all know before we came together as a whole being, we were kind of open. And then we came together at midline, right? That's where the linea alba comes from. Everybody know what that is? That's that line.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get pregnant, it becomes dark. Okay.
Yes.
So attractive. Anyway. All right. So your nerve fibers grow midline out. So imagine above your lip, these are growing like a mustache. When you go to wipe a mouth or a nose, you're going against the grain and with the grain, against the grain and with the grain.
Right.
So if you've got a tactile defensive child, that's going to be horrendous. So you want to wipe midline out and midline out. For wiping a nose, washing a face, or wiping a mouth. And you want to make sure the school knows that too.
Interesting.
Brilliant.
Melanne, that's great.
That's such a good one.
Some real quick ones, because we're very conscious of the time. I'm really interested on this one. How do you check for eye tracking in children? Is it an optometrist or
Well, you can do it yourself. Do it yourself.
Oh, lovely. Tell us.
All right. So what you're going to do, most optometrists are going to go, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
It's really the developmental ophthalmologists. And I will be really honest with you. There's only two that I refer to in the UK.
Okay.
If we really have an issue. But before you get to that stage, sit in front of a child with an object that is either yellow or red. Oh. I notice we all have black on tonight. Excellent.
I always wear black.
I know.
Yeah, me too. And we all travel, so it's just easy. Everything in the suitcase is black, right? So take something of a bright color, sit right in front of the child, hold the object 14 inches from the face, and you get to know that's about like that, okay? And ask the child to lock on, I use kind of video terms, all right, because that's how they all are nowadays, to this object and follow it with their eyes. And we're going to go side to side, and then we're going to go vertically. Now, every child is going to do this first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay? So then I reach across and I hold their head and I say, okay, let's do it without moving our head. Ready? Lock on and follow my object. I don't know if you can see my eyes.
Yeah.
Follow my object. Okay. And now we're going to do it horizontally. Okay. Then I'm going to take my hand off. See if you can do it without my hand and see if they can do it. If they can't, that's significant.
Okay.
Right. Now, what you want to see, if this is the eyeball, this is the object I want them to track, is I want them locked on. I want to see nice, smooth movement. I don't want a midline jerk.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't want an end line jerk. And I don't want overshooting while we're tracking.
Wow. Interesting.
Vertically or horizontally. So if we get a midline jerk, when we're reading across a printed page, you're going to skip a couple of words.
Mm.
If we get an end line jerk, you're going to skip words at the end. And if we are jumping and coming back all the way across, it's going to take you forever to make it across a printed page. And one of the things I will do very quickly when I've got little ones whose eyes are jumping is I use the old fashioned. I need you to use your finger on the words you're reading. Yeah. So that when your eye jumps, you go right back to where your finger is instead of trying to figure out where you lost it. In the meantime, eye tracking, eye muscle movement is a vestibular developmental issue.
Mm.
So you don't need to go to an eye doctor. You need to do activities that incorporate vestibular stimulation and eye muscle. So let's get our little jogging trampoline out. Let's play catch while I'm jumping.
Yeah.
So now I have to maintain visual orientation while I'm going up and down and do an eye-hand task.
Mm.
Or let's get an office chair and I'm going to spin and I'm going to play catch, or I'm going to throw at you, or I'm going to throw at maybe some placemats I've put on the floor. Okay. Not baskets or buckets or pots or pans. That's too difficult. So that now I'm moving, we're stimulating a different canal. We were just doing vertical, now we're doing rotational. And I've got to lock on and get my hand to that target. So I'm exercising my eye muscles at the same time I'm stimulating my vestibular system.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Melanne, that's so good. I'm so conscious. We've got, 1 minute left. So really just to say an amazing thank you. I think there's one question we haven't answered. So maybe we can talk to you another time or send you that question for a quick answer. But
I'm happy to talk more about this, Jackie, because it's a long discussion.
Well, then I think we'll probably call you back, if that's all right, to have another session. Because I think we could have gone on for, so much more.
I know.
You have just some amazing things you've said, just extraordinary. The eye tracking, everything. It's been just incredible. Thank you so much.
What I encourage people to do is to try these activities, even if they sound a little crazy, particularly the circle time, changing positions. Just go try it and try it for a week and you will see changes. Give more movement opportunities. Try my jumping and spinning and clapping. If you've got a classroom beneath you, let them know we're going to be doing a little jumping.
Great.
But do try them because you'll see that they work. And these are true and tested. I've been doing this for 40 plus years. So.
We will. That's honestly, that's just amazing.
Just amazing.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And we will definitely have you back. And
thank you, ladies.
Everybody, for being here. And there was one question that we haven't answered, so we will ask Melanne that and somehow get that back to the person who asked it. And just to say, everyone, we've got another webinar, haven't we?
Yes, on the 29th of March at 6 p.m. and it's Phil Minns from Ofsted. And we're calling that session Ask Ofsted. So we'll send you more information about that, but do join us then. But thank you again, Melanne. That was amazing.
My pleasure. Thank you for including me. This is one of my passions. So thank you.
And it is ours as well.
Oh, one thing I forgot to say.
Yes.
Our website was created as a teaching tool. And if they want to go on the front page, if they look down on the left-hand side to developmental pyramid, there is a pyramid which has all your sensory systems at the base, and it explains a number of skill sets from focus and attention to handwriting to reading, all of that. And it shows you, it highlights the underlying sensory systems and skill sets that are necessary in order to perform those tasks.
I tell you what we'll do, Melanne, is we're going to send everyone a lovely email and we can add that.
Add the website to it. Great.
Yes, so we can send them the
and tell them to, have the parents look at it, not for referral basis, but just for educational reasons.
Yes,
I think that's amazing.
It explains each of the sensory systems. It's a pretty good teaching tool.
So that amazing, brilliant.
Okay,
thank you, Melanne.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye, ladies.
Bye,
Thank you.
And yes, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.